Oh, this is beautiful. This is absolutely stunning. This is all I ever wanted to do. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Metamorphosis Podcast. I'm your host, Milan. And if you're watching me on YouTube, then I hope that you can enjoy the view. I'm sure you won't enjoy as much as I am, but please try to make the best of it because I've really tried to find a good spot. And this is a dream come true. This is something fascinating because I always wanted to do something like this, to do my own podcast in nature and to just enjoy, share this with the world. Thank you for listening, and I'm gonna get straight into it. Today's topic is going to be freedom, the freedom of men, and discussing the changes in the world as perceived by my own unique perception, of course, and allowing you to explore these concepts and occurrences on your own, if you may. There have been many societal changes occurring lately. My work is related to helping men understand their value and worth, their role, their respective role in society, and helping them find purpose, if possible, in life. It is an everlasting journey and change, of course. It is not possible to do such a Promethean task. I'm just going to adjust my microphone. Thank you. Many things have been happening lately, and many hallmark events affected how men have been treated and how they are treated nowadays. This podcast is not going to serve any other purpose than to help guide men towards who they are and who they want to become. What we notice nowadays is an enormous division between men and women, and it seems like the chasm only seems to be widening. And as I enjoy this beautiful nature here where I'm in the woods of Sweden, I simply wish to mention the importance of understanding that us as men and as women are meant to be working together and not apart. We're not supposed to be hindering each other and getting in each other's way, but quite the opposite. We're supposed to be helping each other. And again, discussing in what is supposed to happen can be a dangerous task of its own. But I hope that you can get the message and that you also yourself see that as much as we try to be independent, which we are inherently anyway, we are essentially an interdependent species, and we depend on each other for not just survival, but for the optimization of our lives and how we want our lives to look like. I'm going to be telling you and sharing a personal story and experience pertaining to what I did or what has happened to me. Not that this is about me, but the trials that I went through to maintain and achieve success, and how that has guaranteed a certain level of freedom to me as a man in society such as Swedish. And I want you to know that it is a process still. It is still a process, being financially independent and having your own podcast, your own YouTube channel, making your own bread, or bringing the bread to the table, so to say. It's a task that I think most men can relate to. It's very difficult, especially if you're a guy working 9 to 5, which again, I have nothing against per se. But if you're a guy working 9 to 5, then I hope that you are aware that all the capital that you're generating is going to another person that is above you, the boss. And if you're not the boss, I'm not saying you should be or shouldn't be. It's simply the understanding and awareness that, okay, are you aware that you're generating capital by giving some of the best years of your life to someone 40 hours a week? And are you willing to accept that unless something changes about how you view reality, this is how life is going to look for you from this point onwards? and that the only thing that's going to change is your age and not necessarily your mentality and your ability to question your reality and where you are in life. And many men are trapped in this, and I'm no better than any man that is. I made a personal promise to myself to leave the 9-to-5 workspace. And when you make that kind of promise, when you make that kind of commitment, that becomes law. That becomes so deeply ingrained and embedded within you that it's not even an option anymore for me to go back to working for someone. Although I'm going to be fully honest and transparent with you, there are times when I falter, when I see that it's difficult in life, when I want to give up, quote unquote give up, when I look at how easy it is, and I'm very careful when I say this, so please bear with me, how easy it is to go and search for a job, get a job, and be back in that loop, that safety loop. But I don't grow as a man, as a human. I'm not challenged enough to grow in that because it is repetitive work and repetitive action. And I simply cannot ignore the fact that I'm making money for someone else. And that all that I'm getting is a share of that. Which means that my value, my inherent value as a man, is reduced to simply working for someone else. The reason I think this is important to mention is because, as you probably already know, my work revolves around intersexual dynamics and human relationships. Why this is important is because you as a man, also who work for someone else, if you are in a relationship with a woman, and please, again, I always invite you to go into this yourself. This is not a de facto truth. I'm simply placing and putting this out there for you to examine on your own. If you're a man who is in a relationship with a woman, and you work for a boss, that boss is socio-hierarchically higher than you. And we do, as much as we would like to ignore that, and believe me, I myself am it's not necessarily my identity, but I'm a highly spiritual guy, and I see the world through, I think, different kinds of lens, and yada, yada, yada. However, you do know as a man that you live in a hierarchical world and hierarchical society. And even us as men, we organize societies differently than women. We organize societies and groups in hierarchies, and women are more sociological or socio-centered. So women are more egalitarian. And that's one of the fundamental differences between men and women. The point with me mentioning this is simply that you work for a boss that provides money to you and your girlfriend. But you need to understand that you still are not that boss, and that there is a certain level of, I wouldn't say danger, I would say risk, that your woman, who is naturally hypergamous, and that is a biological fact. I'm not saying that all women follow this hypergamy innately, that all women are this way. There are ways to, of course, bypass this, but it takes a tremendous amount of awareness and work on oneself. Not everyone can do that. Most people can't, as far as I'm concerned, but everyone has the capacity to do so. Now, whether they make that choice, that's a different thing. But if you are in this situation, then your woman basically knows that there is someone out there who's better than you. Now, what is hypergamy? For anyone else who is new in this field of interhuman intersexual relationships and dynamics, hypergamy is characteristic of women, and it is women's innate capacity and ability to mate up and upwards. So women, when they choose partners, and especially we're talking about when they are in their prime, they will choose and they will opt for men that are equal to them or better. And I'm using that word better very carefully because not better in terms of value as a person, but value in a socio-hierarchical sense. Because what women seek and what is their biological and innate drive that they seek in relationships is security and safety, expressed as long-term provisioning and parental provisioning. So the traits that women seek in men, of course, healthy women that take care of themselves and whatnot, the dominant traits that they seek in men that they want to be with in committed relationships are primarily those, so that they can provide for that family unit, be it of 2, 3, or more people, and that they are strong and competent. Now, the reason we have so much separation between men and women, and again, please bear in mind, correlation and not causation. So if I say one thing, if I say that this is the reason that this is happening, know that what I mean more specifically is that there is no one reason and one explanation and one size fits all. God, it's so beautiful here. But rather that is just one piece of the infinite puzzle that I happen to have recognized and that I'm trying to present to you here, so that it might help you guide you or help you compose your life a bit better. So if you're a guy working for a boss, then that places you on a lower hierarchical tier, which means your boss is higher than you, of course. Now, the question I have for you as a man if you're a man working 9 to 5, is how long do you think you can sustain this? And do you think that you can maintain and gradually, incrementally increase the quality of your relationship if this continues to be the case? If you, let's say, started at 20, 25, have met someone or maybe are dating not exclusively, who knows, and you're still maintaining the same quality of life. And the only thing that is changing is perhaps your belongings, your clothes, but you're getting older. And to quote the guy who refers to himself as Rollo Tomasi, if you're not working on money, muscles, and game, which is the trifecta of your success with women, then, and again, it's not limited just to that. Relationships are much more than this. But I'm getting to the roots now, like the raw stuff, and then I'm going to go deeper into it. So if you're not working on these aspects that make you generally attractive to the female population, then you need to really start asking yourself fundamental questions, such as Jordan Peterson invites people to ask. Now, I used to be a big fan of Jordan Peterson, and now I'm kind of more indifferent, and I'm more questioning his work, and my content is also based around his work. So I invite you to question this on your own. And what I mean by this is simply saying that what Jordan Peterson says is that you should aim to become the best version of yourself, and that you should be innately aware of women's hypergamous efforts and where you are and where you will be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or 15 years from now. And where do you want to be? Now, the beautiful thing about this, about projection of one's experience in life, is that you can simply sit with yourself and imagine how you want your life to be. And the danger in this is that if you are in a so-called scarcity mindset, which means that you know that you do not have plenty of money, you know that you do not have plenty of resources to go around, yet you think about achieving all these things. You probably heard this before. I'm repeating what has been said before, but you're coming from a place of lack. And therefore, all of your pursuit towards that which you want, which is, of course, always somewhere outside of you and external to you, right? All of those efforts are simply distractions, and they will not actually give as much result as you would like. Now, I'm not saying this is a fact. I want you to question this on your own, and I want this to happen to you, and I want you to explore all this on your own. But you need to know that you and you should discover this on your own. So I'm only telling you something that I don't want you to repeat, that I don't want you to write down as a mantra. I don't care what you do with it. I'm telling you as a guy who's living this kind of life. You need to discover what life is on your own, and what exactly it is that you want to do with your life. So, if you want to do a certain kind of work, and what that work is, how does that work look like or feel like, or is that something that you can do right now? And if not, how do you do it? So you need to really reassess your life and think about what your life is. And again, to not make it about money. And I know that this sounds absurd when I speak about 9 to 5 and myself, who is also working for money, right? Because we all are if we're going to sustain ourselves. But what I'm referring here more specifically is that the money is not your primary goal. You probably heard of Ikigai, which is a beautiful Japanese principle of how to understand your life's purpose. And again, take this with an enormous grain of salt, because only you can understand what your life's purpose is. Not some Ikigai, not some magnum opus, nothing that... The word is not the thing. And you really need to understand this on a deep soul level. That whatever I say might make sense to you, but it makes sense to you only because your mind is able to connect the dots. Give it a concept and give it an image, but that image is not the thing. What you need to do is to discover life on your own, whatever your life is. And your life is a beautiful and outstanding battle, and a million other things that I'm not even going to get into. How you resolve the problems in your life is indicative and demonstrative of who you are as a man, as a person. The difficulties that we are facing as men now in 21st century 2022. Sweden. I live in Sweden, and I'm going to tell you that Sweden, as one of the most, if not the most egalitarian societies in the world, and egalitarian meaning that there is a fundamental equality of opportunity between men and women, still faces one of the largest separations and divisions between men and women. According to statistical data, 60% of the Swedish population lives alone. So that means that there is a one-person household, mostly apartments. If I'm able to draw up statistics, I will happily share this with you. And this is a highly concerning number, simply because there is a pool of data demonstrating that we have been changing and shifting as societies drastically since the dawn of mankind, of course, since we know about ourselves. But since the sexual revolution that took place in 1965. Now, bear in mind, this is not anything to bash women or to say something negative about women. We're trying to understand this together. But we need to understand how the male role has been taken away from the family, how fathers and fatherly role models have been slowly and gently isolated, and how their importance have been stripped away from them in an attempt to separate the family, to break away the family unit, and to have us reach this point in time where men and women are on the opposite ends of a divided society. Divorce rates are increasing and marriage rates are plummeting. And we're witnessing some of the largest divisions between men and women ever. We can change this, but we first need to understand this. And I'm not giving you a solution or a way of understanding. I'm simply raising and increasing your awareness and asking you, what kind of life do you want to live? And would this information actually change how you feel and think about the world, men, women in general? Doesn't matter. Women have been given every option to choose, because they have literally been, since the sexual revolution, women have been made the sole selector of whose children they're going to bear. Which means that men have been stripped off from any choice and taking part in that process. I am not saying in any way that women should not decide what to do with their own bodies. However, since women did let a man into their bodies, willingly, voluntarily, then the outcome of that meeting or intercourse entails that two people should also decide on what is the right course of action. The problem that arises here is expressed very, very, very clearly and vividly in the feminist movement, which is, and you probably heard this before, my body, my choice movement. I will never tell a woman that she shouldn't decide what to do with her own body. But men and women are fundamentally different, and the cost and the risk that women hold in sexual relationships, during the act of sex, is incomparably higher to that of men. And if you're a woman listening to this, I know that you know exactly what I'm speaking about. Because if you as a woman have sex, especially unprotected sex, the risk is tremendous. Not just because of the risk of pregnancy, which again is an enormous thing, but also because women have been told with the increase and the rise of the feminist movement and the gynocentric movement that only focuses on the female perspective of reality, that women can behave exactly like men and that women can just sleep around with zero consequences like men. I'm not here to bash women and tell women that they shouldn't be doing these things. However, men and women are biologically, fundamentally, differently programmed. Women have attempted, unsuccessfully, to divorce sex from its reproductive purpose, which means having sex for the sake of pleasure. Which, once again, I'm not saying women should not do. I'm not here to say what should or should not happen. We're discussing reality and facts. Women, when they have sex with men, they bond with the men they have sex with. They secrete oxytocin and they get attached to the men they have sex with. Because women choose their sexual partners in a different way than men do. Men's biological imperative is spreading the seed. And it's much more than that. But if a man is, let's say, in his alpha energy, which is highly dominant masculine energy, then he will be very likely to have been attract many women and thus be put in that abundance mindset, which I know might be very difficult for some people to accept because everyone has a definition of what an abundance mindset looks and feels like. But think about this. If your male biological imperative is spreading the seed, then you, by being an empowered, powerful man who naturally has access to sexuality, will exhibit exactly these traits and behavior. Women, on the other hand, do not have the same reproductive strategy as men. Women seek for a stable sole provider and caretaker of their child, and a man, male, if we're going to discuss all mammalian species, a male who can guarantee their safety and the safety of the family and stable provisioning. This gets fragmented indefinitely the more women engage in sexual encounters with other men. I'm not saying women should not do that. I'm not saying that women should be shamed for doing that. What is important here is understanding this problem, understanding the problematics of it. Because we rush so much with solutions, and we cannot wait to invent the next thing, the next gestation chamber or in vitro fertilization that we think is going to save women. It simply is not addressing the fundamental problem. Now, what does all of this have to do with male freedom? A lot, actually. Because as men, as our power has been progressively taken away from us, from nuclear family, from the fathers being left out and their role insignificant in the family, because it is normally the women that are given higher importance to. Again, I'm not saying this coming from any bad place. I'm inviting you to observe this phenomenon on your own. Because when you observe male and female behavior and see how people behave in relationships, in breakups, in divorces. I myself have been, and I'm only mentioning this for the reference sake, in a very abusive relationship. And I reached a point where when I left that relationship and when I actually wanted to make peace with this woman, I was somehow labeled the abuser, the manipulator, and all these names, which affected me as a man. And it emasculated me. On top of that, and please take this very, very seriously and also with a grain of salt. On top of all that, no matter what I said and no matter what amount and kind of effort I invested into, first of all, defending my reputation, and two, speaking up and telling the truth, the more resistance was created and the more people did not trust me. Because who is normally trusted when these things happen is women. How does this reflect in real life? Women are punished less in prisons for the same crimes that they commit as men. So women receive higher sentences. And this is only one of the plethora of examples that demonstrate how society tends to trust women and how we can see how much power women actually have. Women, however, have not woken up to the fact of how much responsibility they bear and how much power they hold. Because if this power can be used for good and for actually understanding each other and understanding the truth together and overcoming all the elements and aspects of the self which are shameful, which are neglected, you name it, then I believe there's a really, really hope, I would even say, I dare say, that we can actually come together and sit and have a civil conversation. Until that happens, it is going to be almost impossible to look at each other in the eye and be transparent and honest and to allow men to restore their role that has been taken away since the beginning of sexual revolution. And I know that many people say that, especially women, say that they don't want to go back to the black and white era where men were the patriarchs and taking care of the households. And I'm not suggesting that either. Believe me, we're not going to go back there because it's literally impossible. History doesn't repeat itself. History rhymes. Which means that what will happen in the future is going to be the echo of the past, but not the reflection of it. So don't you worry, ladies. There will be no men that are going to want to control you patriarchally or in any other way. However, what is happening increasingly is men, myself being one of them, waking up and understanding yet another layer of reality and the bitter truth of human relationships and conditioning of society. And understanding that there is not much value and worth in conventional, so to say, relationships, but that all of us have been very, very misled and lied to and manipulated to a certain point to believe that relationships should be a certain way, because up to this very day we follow patterns, we follow norms, how relationships should be, marriage, family, and we rarely approach the aspect of freedom within and without relationships, because we do not understand relationship if the only thing we can do is define a relationship. What do I mean by this? I mean that none of us, very few of us rather, actually inquire into what relationship means and matters to us. Because if we are deeply and truly honest with ourselves, we will admit to the other person that we are simply using them to achieve a certain means, that they are means to an end. And this might be the harsh and brutal reality we're still not willing to face. And I'm not saying we should go to each other and say these kinds of things. But we should understand that this also is a form of conditioning. That we also are, as men and women, conditioned to believe that relationships should be a certain way and as long as we are in this survival mode, as I speak often about, relationships won't be possible because they will be a means to a positive experience of survival. And for that to happen, for those kinds of relationships to nourish us and to flourish, what is essentially needed is to understand our relationship with ourselves. To understand and truly realize who we are, what our role and purpose here is, and just to give ourselves a very good look every day, to revisit that place every day. I'm not saying there's a solution or one size fits all for men and women. I'm simply sharing my experience as a man who loves what he does, loves speaking about these things, loves helping other men with no recipe, with no prescription. Men that come to me for support and guidance are men that are outstandingly good listeners, but also have been severely conditioned, like myself, like almost every man I know, to believe that relationships should be a certain way. And that there is either only one and only woman, and that only she can fulfill my needs, or that I should be a man going my own way, and all the other branches of movement and fragmentations within society and the world that have been happening, that are supposed to be solutions to a problem but are not. And the problem is deep within us, and the problem is us. I've actually met people who think that men or mankind should be eradicated, and that is once again an extremism, an extremist understanding of the solution of a problem. But I want to share with you something I've learned this year that is one of the most impactful and life-changing things, I think, forever. And that is that the very understanding of the problem, the awareness of the problem, is solution to the problem. And I want you to sit with that one for a second, because I definitely needed to hear that a few times before I fully understood it. And then it just came to me. It makes so much sense. This doesn't mean that there are not problems that require genuine action and work and solution. Of course not. But usually these problems arise from the need to have and obtain a certain outcome. So which means it's fueled with ambition. And there is nothing wrong with ambition, don't get me wrong. But ambition is image creation. Ambition is you sitting where you are right now, and instead of me listening to this beautiful bird, me saying, well, I'm going to tell you something on this podcast which is going to sound like this or like that, and I'm going to, instead of being fully authentically myself, I'm going to keep talking so that I can send you a certain message. When you go, for example, on a date with a woman, you don't look forward to going to a date with a woman. You think about how she might or might not be the one for you, and how she might or might not be the good mother of your children or whatnot. And we're so used to looking at reality like this that we never actually enjoy the present moment and where we are, just feeling where we are, what our life is about, and really understanding our place in this universe, in this world. And I'm not going into some esoteric or spiritual realms here. I'm simply telling you that observing the process changes the process. Observing your life changes your life. And I have definitely changed my life just by observing it, because only after I have thoroughly looked at my life could I have made the necessary changes required for it. And that becomes effortless when you reach that point. And I cannot even explain to you, because I'm actually doing this right now. I'm sitting here talking in my phone, enjoying what I have worked so beautifully to accomplish. And at the same time, this was in a sense effortless, because I have arrived to the point of my life when I said, no more. This is not going to happen anymore. I refuse to give my freedom, my free time, energy, and efforts to anyone other than myself and people who I love. and who love me. And I simply wish to do this for the world out of nothing but the best and positive intention. And that is exactly what is happening. I am no guru. I am no teacher. I am no coach, although I coach and consult people. Because all those are just labels that do not actually define fully who I am. Therefore, I don't use them. But I'm doing something that I've identified as my core purpose, core meaning of my life. And there's nothing more important to do right now than this. Than being here and sharing this with you, repeating it over and over until you finally get it. Because once you get it, you can't go back. And this is what I love about the Red Pill community and the Red Pill movement, even though it's becoming a bit of a cliche. But the premise is the same. If you've seen Matrix, if you've seen the movie The Matrix, you understand that once you take the red pill, once you go down the rabbit hole, there is no coming back. There is no coming back from understanding what life is. And you begin understanding what life is by understanding what life is not. And for you to understand what life is not, you really need to experience all of life. All of its challenges, all of its suffering, all of its movement, its beautiful composure. Everything. Like I am now. Sitting here in this forest, surrounded by tall pine trees. By the way, a very good friend of mine, Leo, loves these kinds of forests. So Leo, I want you to know that I'm thinking of you, that I miss you, and that I hope that you're well. I haven't heard from you in a while. We're actually going to speak soon, so that's good. I look forward to that. I want you to know that as men, it is completely up to you, always, what you're going to do with your lives. The reason men are so detached from their purpose today is because their primary fatherly role has been taken away from them through simply all kinds of mechanisms of shame and negation tactics that have diminished men's role in families. And I want you to remember one very important thing and why this is so important. Because we have been separated and isolated from each other in our families to the point that we are alone, and we are finding myriads of ways to fit in societies that fundamentally don't care about us because we are simply not connected in as much as we would like to be. By removing the father from the family, you are exposing the belly of the most vulnerable community in this world, in this life, because the father is the protector of the family. This doesn't mean that a woman can protect herself, but a woman entered that relationship to be with the man and to have a family and for them to have a child together. If a father is not present there, the woman can, but very rarely, provide for herself and the child, providing optimal conditions. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that optimal conditions are very, very rare. So what normally happens is that women will, as their nature suggests, simply find another man, because that is the solution to the sustenance and sustaining that family, which then becomes another family. And that is one of the reasons men commit suicide at a far greater rate than women. Because of divorces that are, in 70% of the cases at least, initiated by women. So I think you can understand the confusion of us men when we attempt to understand why this is the case and why this is happening, when all we want is... Also, in our own way, we are not perfect. We have our own flaws as men. That is definitely something I would like to speak more about. We are all flawed. We're all imperfect, and that's what makes us so beautiful. But when I delve deeper into how men are treated and why men suffer so much, and the suicide rate in men, and the male aggression and the increase of violence, and all the things that characteristically target men, the world started making much more sense to me. And I myself, as a result, became a better man, which I never expected I would be. And I say that very carefully. I say that with a grain of salt, that I've become a better man. And how I know this is because it reflects in my relationships. And I choose people that actually do challenge me and that do put me to the test daily. And that is one of the most beautiful things with relationships, and understanding that we cannot do without them. We are an interdependent species, as I said in the beginning of this episode. And as men, please don't forget that what you want from this life is absolutely, totally valid. And you deserve to have everything that you want. But just be aware that it might be an image created by your mind and projected. And again, nothing wrong with that. But don't let someone else tell you what you should or shouldn't do, what you should or shouldn't have. And that, I mean seriously, and in every aspect of your life. If you want to be with 3 women, be with 3 women. No one is there to tell you otherwise. If you want to be with one woman for the rest of your life, be with her. If you want to drive 3 fast cars, then do exactly that. And really, really, I'm telling you this from a personal experience. Fuck what everyone else has to say to you. Because your well-being is the world's well-being. And if you are okay, as long as you don't do harm to someone else and no one else suffers as a consequence of you rising up, you will be not just fine, you will be great. You will be very, very well taken care of. The reason I again mention the importance of men in not just relationships but in society is when we were back in our tribal days, and I want you to really, really remember this before I end this podcast episode. Back in our tribal days, the unit of the tribe was not one person. The unit of the tribe was family. And I want you to think about this very clearly, very, very deeply. If you're in a tribe, then you're not partaking in that tribe as a family, as an individual. You partake as a family, and the tribe usually made sure that you are provided for and well taken care of, and in return you will contribute to maintaining the tribe through relations, through marriage, through your unique contribution to the tribe. Because as a single unit, you are vulnerable and exposed. And there is nothing wrong with you as a human being remaining a singular unit, being on your own, doing your thing, because as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing wrong with that. But we're facing an enormous crisis right now, and one of the largest populational declines, I think, ever in human history, because we have also reached the highest peak in recorded history. So of course that's gonna, if we decline, which we will, due to the separations between men and women, then that is going to be a very interesting process to observe. And I won't say that this is inherently good or bad. I'm going to tell you, please be mindful of this. Please observe what is happening around you and do not ignore what goes on around you, because you ignore awakening your intelligence, which is your greatest blessing in this life. And I mean true intelligence. I don't mean intelligence measured by IQ or some idiotic standardized tests. True intelligence is love. True intelligence is your ability to see what you're a part of, to see how important your place is here, to understand your purpose and meaning, and to play your role in accordance to your nature and to enjoy this beautiful and fantastic life. To focus all your conscious energy and attention to what matters right now. To be grateful for what you have. Because only from that point can you move on and build more. And believe me, there is always more. We're so used to and we're so conditioned and programmed to think in terms of milestones and goals and and images. And that is, of course, our nature to an extent. But when you decondition yourself, when you get away from all this rat race, and when you start, again, being your own person, being your own man, being free, being something you've always wanted to be, and someone whom you've always wanted to become, someone who you've always been from day one. You just forgot that. You just didn't have that awareness. You lost track of yourself. You lost the vision of who you are because you were blinded by who you want to be. But you can't know who and what you want to be unless you know who you are right now. And you have a lot of catching up to do, my friend. You have a lot of catching up to do, because if you have been neglecting yourself for years, like most people have, then you cannot build an empire on a landslide. You cannot build a home on a rocky foundation. You must get to know yourself. You must understand your life and what your life is about through your actions, through your words, through your relationships. And I don't mean relationships as in a relationship with one woman. Again, that is conditioning. It's your relationship to everything in this life, in this universe, to nature, to animals, to plants, to children, to parents, to anything you can possibly perceive and feel is something that you have a relationship with. And how you treat that thing that you have a relationship with is reflective of who you are. It took me 30 years to understand this. And I've only just gotten started. That is the most beautiful thing about this life. This podcast that's also helped me so much. And I really hope it helped you too. Because I really devote this one to so many people that have supported me. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm going to call that a day. Yep. I'm going to call it a day. And I want to thank you for being, if you're watching me on YouTube, thank you for watching me. I really appreciate all of your support. And I want you to know that I'm really doing my best into presenting this work in the best way possible, because it's a very sensitive subject and topic. And there's so much division in the world already. There are people, of course, who really don't like what I do. There are people who really do like what I do. Thank you, really, both. And I hope that this is beneficial to you in any way. And if you're offended by this, nothing personal. I really just do what I love and hope that it helps someone, guide someone, be a beacon of light to someone. That was the 19th episode of the Metamorphosis Podcast. Thank you so much, and take care of yourselves. Build a wonderful life, wonderful society, wonderful body. Please take care of your body, your mind, your health. And everything else will naturally fall into place, because that is what you do when you have a healthy mind and body. That is fantastic. Bye. Take care.